We're back. Week 8, large and in charge. Coming off some good stuff going into week 8. Welcome in. This is our week 8 ranking show for quarterbacks and tight ends. It is myself, Jesse Moore, J-Moore05, with my co-host, Jeremy Schulman, FF_Rebel. How are you doing today, Jeremy?
Yeah, doing good. Loving the intro. Watched Back to the Future just before filming this pod with my son, who's obsessed.
Perfect.
I love that. I'll take full credit for that one. So yeah, we're in that weird 80s mindset of whatever the hell that intro music is. I love every second of it. I love to hate it, and I hate it, and I love it.
Yeah, it's immediately like pumps you up. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm so ready for whatever we're doing. It's hilarious. So yeah, that's a fun little thing we put together. Thank you, SE, for that. It's going to be
fantastic.
Consistent entertainment all season long. So if you don't enjoy the show, you at least enjoy the intro. So that's something I got to look forward to. Yeah, we're talking about quarterbacks and tight ends this week. We are going to be focusing on quarterbacks first. We're going to be doing our tier rankings, and that is going to be Jeremy's tier rankings. We're moving that forward after this week. We might do a consensus rankings if we're able to compile those together all in one show. We'll see. It's taking us some time, but we will get there. So yeah, let's just straight up just dive into these tiers and talk about them. So Jeremy, your tier 1 quarterbacks are quarterbacks 1 through 3. You have Lamar Jackson, no surprise, quarterback 1, going against the Cleveland Browns. Josh Allen, no surprise there, going quarterback 2 against the Seattle Seahawks, my depleted Seattle Seahawks. And quarterback 3, Jalen Hurts, going against the Cincinnati Bengals. What separates these 3, and who of this group would you like to talk about? Because they're all just excellent fantasy producers.
Let's talk about Josh Allen with Amari Cooper back in the fold. He's my QB2. He probably should be my QB1 against that Seattle defense, but I'll go ahead and temper expectations because, number 1, I'm talking to a Seattle Seahawks fan. Number 2, they just got Ernest Jones, one of the best inside linebackers in the young inside linebackers in the game, moving over this an hour or two ago.
Yeah.
They just made the trade for Jerome Baker, who's been putting up statistics, but hasn't really been solid in the interior. Jones will solidify that. I don't know if it's going to matter on that defense, but it'll matter a little bit more if they can limit the opposition to 1 fewer touchdown a game. It won't put as much pressure on the offense, and Seattle could maybe turn this thing around. Because the offense is cooking. But yeah, Josh Allen is awesome. Amari Cooper in the fold, something like 34% of snaps he was on the field for last week. Obviously, they were just ramping him up in that trade from Cleveland, which, by the way, the trade market is going wild here and still going. I think the deadline's looming here soon. But Amari Cooper increasingly in the fold. Keon Coleman getting it together. Shakir still there. Kincaid viable. Getting healthier, Ray Davis being used. I mean, this offense is starting to gel, and Josh Allen is the top 3 quarterback rest of season. He's probably going to finish as the QB1 again after a few rocky starts. But yeah, I could not put Mr. reigning MVP himself and current 2024 MVP Lamar Jackson. I don't care who he's playing. He's playing Cleveland. I don't care. He is going to dominate. So Lamar, Josh, and Jalen Hurts is getting there, especially in a cakey matchup against Cincinnati. So those guys are awesome.
Yeah, it's all excellent matchups. Like, I get the Seahawks defense they've been very up and down. Like, they've been good a couple games against some really bad quarterback play. And the games where, they face some good quarterbacks, Jared Goff absolutely torched them. So, I don't expect the defense to win the game against Buffalo because Josh Allen's really freaking good. He will do the key man impression where he does the little things. He's like, I can do it myself. And he trusts himself a little bit too much sometimes. So he's bound to turn the ball over every now and then. I think he had something like 7 straight turnovers in primetime games or something along those lines because he trusts himself a lot and 100% get it. He's like the peak just YOLO ball player. Like Will Levis, but if you made Will Levis just incredibly good at football is the way I would phrase it. So it's just like that's how it is for Josh Allen. These 3 are all just great options. Like you can't go wrong. And the Seahawks in that trade, they traded Jerome Baker and a 4th for him. So interesting trade. I don't know how it's going to work out for them, but clearly they valued him because they got Jerome Baker for peanuts in the trade. I think they traded a 7th pick for him to Miami. So they are slowly improving that defense as it goes along. We'll see. But
I like it.
Well, I think we're gonna jump into a much more interesting tier because we have the big 3. Everybody kind of knows those guys. Tier 2 is your quarterbacks 4 through 7, and I actually like all those guys. So let me put stuff real quick. We have Jordan Love. Here's your quarterback core going against a depleted Jacksonville defense, which has struggled across the board, and there should be a lot of points in that game. We have your quarterback 5, spicy, Mr. Sam Darnold, going against the Rams defense, who, if nobody doesn't know, this Rams defense is atrocious. And we will see why Sam Darnold is top 5. Next up, Joe Burrow. So he's going up against Hurts, who's your quarterback 3. Joe Burrow is quarterback 6. Philadelphia. This game should be a shootout. It makes sense why you have him that. And the last and most interesting one of this group is Kyler at QB 7, which is what he is on a points per game basis right now. He's going against Miami, but Kyler's been very up or down. Like, I know the stats are there. His play has not been that great, and I love Kyler. I think he's good. Like, what carried him was that monster rush last week against the Chargers. So, of these 4 guys you have here, who's the guy that you want to talk about in this group?
I want to talk about all of them, but I guess I'll talk about Joe Burrow because he's the one I'm least confident in. I mean, Love has thrown multiple touchdowns in every single game he's played in this year. Sam Darnold has been getting there, and these matchups are awesome for these guys. Kyler Murray has been getting there on the ground every single game. If he runs it in, he's automatically vaulted into like this top 6 because he's good for a touchdown, maybe 2 through the air. And if he can put together a good string passing the ball, we know these rushing quarterbacks, if they run one in, they're almost automatically top 6. But let's talk about Joe Burrow because he is not that. He's not a rushing quarterback. And the real issue with Cincinnati is that line. That line looked absolutely atrocious against the New York Giants. I can't remember if that was 2 weeks ago or I think that was 2 weeks ago against the Giants. I can't remember who they played last week, but it wasn't much better in terms of a pass rush. I'm looking it up now. It was, Cleveland, of course, right? So continually coming at Joe Burrow, and he's really just struggling to get it done, even though he's got 2 excellent receiving weapons. On the outside. But against Philadelphia, I'm not that scared of the secondary. I am scared of the pass rush. So we'll see if they get home. Joe Burrow at 6, a little spicy, but at least he's at home and he's got those 2 excellent receivers.
Yeah, those 2 wide receivers are absolutely cooking. And ever since T. Higgins has got back healthy into this offense, like it's made a world difference. It's made life easier for Jamar Chase to do his thing. T. Higgins is actually like his expected role and everything. He's actually out targeting Jamar Chase, which is very surprising, but it just shows you how good those 2 guys are. And when that offense functions at its peak, it requires both of those players to do it. Because Joe Burrow can do a lot. He just still needs them to carry more on top. I think they're still a bottom matchup as far as fantasy points allowed, but it's the Bengals offense. Like I understand like why he's that high. It's a very fun, interesting matchup. You're gonna have to keep pace with Hurts on offense, right? So like fire up. I like it. Let's jump into your tier 3, which is interesting. This is your quarterbacks 8 through 12. And if I can find the page, there we are. The first guy who is number 8, that's CJ Stroud. Has a really good, juicy matchup against Indianapolis because he needs because he has been struggling offensively. Yeah. So let's hopefully this is a get-right game for CJ Stroud because Indianapolis is pretty much the cure-all for every team that plays them except like the Raiders. But so it should be good. The next one is Caleb Williams at quarterback 9. 100% makes sense. The Washington defense has turned a corner, but like they're just not that good. They're not going to be able to stop this offense. So I like that ranking. The next guy, Brock Purdy, going up against the depleted Dallas defense. He's at quarterback 10. You'll see the depleted defenses will boost these quarterbacks up. 100% makes sense, right? Kirk Cousins going up against a Tampa Bay team that really had a rough Monday night game. Started out strong, and then Baltimore just put it on them, and they could not do anything to stop it on both sides of the ball. So it'll be interesting to see if Kirk Cousins keep it going. I think he will be able to do that against the Buccaneers, kind of depleted pass rush and everything. And then the last guy, who is the biggest letdown of the season, Patrick Mahomes, quarterback 12, just makes it into your tier 3. We can talk about a few of these guys. One of these guys, I'll give you the floor to talk about whoever you want to talk about.
Let's do Stroud first. I mean, the scary part of CJ Stroud ranked so high is number 1, I don't think he has done it. Sorry, he's done it twice this season, QB 8 and QB 7 on the season, once against Indianapolis in week 1, right? So we know that it's there for him, but he did have Nico Collins in that game. So that's the concern that I have. No Nico, obviously. Tank Dell, I don't know what's going on with him. We assume he's still recovering from injury or integrating or whatever's happening there. Dalton Schultz just seems kind of relatively non-existent or non-factor, right? Even if he's seeing a few targets a game. So, it is a little spicy, I think, to have him up at 8, but this Indy defense is so terrible. They're so bad. I mean, the one thing that will temper my enthusiasm for Stroud this week is that DeForest Buckner and EJ Speed might both be back. They're both practicing today, so they might both be back this week. If that's the case, those are 2 massive pieces on defense for a terrible defense that will remain terrible, but they will still be able to kind of limit what Houston does, and Houston has not been the standout offense we expected. On the other end, Kansas City has not been the standout offense we expected. They're 6-0, but they're doing it the way they did it last year. They're kind of dink and dunking it down the field. They're relying on the running game. Patrick Mahomes absolutely trucked. Was it Mustafa? It was one of those safeties I think it was Mustafa, who was flying around the field, absolutely annihilating everyone. And then Patrick Mahomes just puts his shoulder into him and just knocks him flat on his ass. That was amazing. But yeah, Patrick Mahomes has sucked otherwise. Like, it's been really bad for fantasy. It's been looked really bad in reality, but they keep winning because that defense is awesome. So putting him at QB 12 feels spicy, but it's the Raiders. The Raiders suck. So I like all of these guys in this range. I'm firing them up in single QB leagues, especially Caleb in another juicy matchup. So yeah, I have no issues with any of these top 12 guys.
Yeah, and like those people that don't know, like DeForest Buckner is probably the best defensive player on the Indianapolis Colts. You can make a case for maybe a couple other guys, but like he's a central part of that defense. So losing him when they lost him has been, you could just see the difference. Like they can't stop the run. They're really struggling with the pass. He's going to make a big difference. But to your point, they have a lot of problems on that defense. So it's not just a one player fix all things for them. So I like the rankings. Maybe a little spicy, but you know, it makes 100% sense with where they are and who they're going against. Let's jump into your tier 4, which is your quarterbacks 13 through 17. We have the highlighter guy of this one that is starting this because he has the juiciest matchup going against Carolina. It's Bo Nix at quarterback 13. It might seem spicy, but actually I think that is very, like, you could even make the case to put him higher if you want to. Like, I really like that matchup.
Agree.
Gino going up against a Buffalo defense, which loves to give up points to the running back. They don't really give up a lot of points outside of that, but we'll see how that goes. Without DK Metcalf, I'm very curious how this goes for Gino. Gino's a very good quarterback. He's going to have to do it on his own in this game. So, like, if he's going to do it, he's going to have to do it to keep up with Josh Allen. Quarterback 15, Jared Goff going up against the Tennessee defense, which is kind of showing signs that they're fraudulent, and maybe this had to do with their lack of offense and the teams that they played early on. They got torched last week. It could happen again this week as well. So he's sitting at quarterback 15 against Tennessee. The next one is Tua at quarterback 16 going up against Arizona. And if people watch the Arizona games, the Chargers, the Arizona defense is really not that good, but the Chargers offense is just a dread to watch. So they kind of slow that game, make it easier to them. And then the last guy is Baker, quarterback 17 going up against Atlanta in what is a good matchup, but overall Baker's lost 2 of his top producing wide receivers. There's a lot of like fluctuation going on with Baker. So I think his value, as high as he was earlier this season, it makes a lot of sense to put him down just because we don't know what's going to happen with him. So for your tier 4, who or which guys would you like to talk about?
How the mighty have fallen. Baker Mayfield, that just sucks. I mean, apparently, at least as far as my rankings are concerned, and I think we'll see it on the field Sunday, in the NFL, you need guys whose feet point in the same direction running routes for you. And Chris Godwin was not that guy at the end of last week's game. Terrible for Chris Godwin. We joke to keep from crying in fantasy and feeling bad for the guy in reality, but he'll make it back. It's just, that was some brutal stuff. So Baker, you have to downgrade him. Jared Goff, you have to downgrade him. Not because of the weapons, but because they're going against a team that just traded away 2 of their best players, one on offense, one on defense in Tennessee. And just, they're obviously tanking for probably a quarterback. They're in full dynasty rebuild mode, sending away all their points off their roster. And so I think this is a Monty game if he's healthy. It's a Gibbs game if he isn't. I don't think Goff is going to have to do too much here. But Bo Nix, he's QB 13. I almost put him above Patrick Mahomes and Kirk Cousins. I couldn't totally do it. But yeah, it's that rushing floor for Nix. He finishes the QB 8 in week 5, the QB 9 in week 6. Week 7, he came up against a tougher New Orleans D who has been hot and cold, but they were at least able to limit those weapons. The limiting is not going to happen this week at home against Carolina. So yeah, I like these guys, but you make some good points, and we'll see what Tua has. I hope Tua plays. I am immediately plugging in every other Miami Dolphins skill position player. So yeah, so for example, like we got 2 running backs, we got Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane. I'm plugging them in immediately against Arizona. We got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I'm plugging them in immediately. The only person I'm not plugging in, who I never was plugging in, was Jonnu Smith. I'm not chasing those points. This offense is not designed that way. I don't love Tua because he's my QB 16. At the same time, he's just going to elevate everybody else, and that defense absolutely sucks. So, Kyler is QB 7. So, they're going to be able to score points. So Miami's going to have to.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the interesting thing with Goff, he's also missing Jameson Williams for these next 2 games. So we'll see how that lack of his defense beatability. Yeah, Like, we need some Laporta in our lives. Come on back, baby. Like, Gibbs a little bit. Like, the offense is you're going to see it consolidate around those pieces a little bit more. It's interesting to see if they maybe include, why am I blanking on his name? The old guy. That's the slot rusher, the bigger body guy. I'm blanking on his name. I will figure it out later.
Patrick, Raymond.
Yes, yeah, those type of guys. Like, one of those guys, if he steps up to kind of help out, make up the lack of production. But I think they just lean on the horses they have. What's interesting is, like, the pass rush has not been able to get to Goff, and I think that's more because I don't have data to back this up, but, like, Laporta seems like he's staying in to protect more. And it's making a world of difference for Goff, where he's just sitting there and he's dissecting defenses. So if that's a change for that offense, like, I don't know what to do with Laporta. He's the most, like, confounding asset, right? Because he's talented. We'll see. But overall, like, I like these rankings. It seems like a good position place for all of these guys. You can make the case to make a few of them lower, a few of them higher, but it's a good spot to be. Let's jump into tier 5, which is a little bit of a bigger tier. And it gets a little bit more treacherous down here, where it's kind of like borderline starters this week. Quarterback 18 through quarterback 23. We have Dak Prescott, who is what we call down bad right now in fantasy, going up against a Niners team that is also very down bad. Just got basically just taken to the woodshed by the freaking Chiefs. So we'll see if they can get it right. One of these teams has to get right in this game. I expect it to be San Francisco. We'll see. Dak's going to be expected to throw a lot in this game. So it could be a high variance game for him. Quarterback 19, Aaron Rodgers is interesting going up against a New England defense, which is just can't stop the run anymore. Like, that's just not a thing they do anymore. So we'll see how efficient Aaron Rodgers is going to be in this game. I expect he's going to be very good. Quarterback 20, Russell Wilson going up against the Giants in what could be a juicy matchup for him. We'll see if they lean on him heavily. They might not have to. Quarterback 21, Drake May going up against the Jets. For my Drake May heart, I'm a little sad to see him this low, but I understand why he's this low. Anthony Richardson, quarterback 22, going up against Houston. Houston is the team where he went off in week 1. If he's able to do that, he's going to skyrocket up the rankings, but he's just been pretty much the worst quarterback in the NFL. Like, he's bad. Not quite Bryce Young, who we'll get to in a little bit since he's going to be the starter for Carolina. But, yeah. And the last guy in this tier is Trevor Lawrence, going up against the Green Bay Packers defense, which just gave C.J. Stroud hell. Like, they could not do anything offensively against them. So, which of these guys, because there's a lot of interesting ways you can go in this group, who's the guy you want to highlight in this tier?
None of them. I don't want to highlight anyone. Look, Aaron Rodgers against New England, they're going to be able to move the football. I just think, like you said, I think it's going to be a Breece Hall day. The way Rodgers gets there is if he continues those dump offs and Breece Hall gets another 100 yards receiving in this game. He can absolutely get there. Russell Wilson at QB 20 can absolutely get there. But like you said, I think they're going to run it. They're going to Arthur Smith their way through the New York Giants in Pittsburgh and just absolutely dominate on defense. And then Dak Prescott, QB 18, it's been so hard for him. This should not be that difficult. They do not have a running game to run against San Francisco, but they're in San Francisco, which is it's no longer Candlestick. I don't know what the hell the name of that park is, but whatever the hell it's called, something bank stadium, some bullshit bank stadium.
Yeah, it's
no, like jeans, like the jeans. Okay. So look, all of those guys, I get it. If you want to plug them in, if you have them, that's fine. I'm probably going to pass in single QB leagues. But speaking of passing, Drake May should be able to pass on the New York Jets. He's my QB 21. I'm afraid he's going to get absolutely crushed in this game with those heavy guys up front. But if he can buy some time, if he can get a little bit of time and sit in the pocket, he could tear this secondary apart, because there's a lot of guys still recovering from injury. Some of them, like DJ Reed, may play. But how healthy will they be? They got absolutely torched by Russell Wilson last week. So we'll see. I just think because of the matchups, because of the situations that all these quarterbacks face, I'm just not confident with them this week.
Yeah, the Jets are going through it right now with injuries on the defensive side of the ball. So we will see if they can get to him. I think, to your point of what you're highlighting with him, his ability to, like, evade pressure and, like, keep himself extend plays is the skeleton key for him. That's how he produces fantasy points, and this is entirely what New England is counting on him to do the rest of the season. Like, it's going to be up and down. He might have a turnover or two, but I think he can give you enough points if you need to flex him this week. Let's go to tier 6 of your quarterbacks. This is really getting real low in the rankings. We're at quarterbacks 24 through 28. I think the most interesting guy is the guy you have at the top of the list. That's Jameis Winston at quarterback 24. Going up against a Baltimore defense which cannot stop the pass. Now, it was going good for Tampa. Mike Evans went out, and then it was just a disaster outside of that. what's nice is Jameis has a few decent pieces. Obviously, I'm expecting it to be a heavy Njoku game. We'll see about the wide receivers. Maybe it's Tillman in, maybe it's not. The next guy is Matthew Stafford going up against the Vikings defense, which has been a problem all season. Goff did really good in the second half coming out against that defense where they adjusted the pressures and all those things. We'll see if that line can keep Stafford upright. That's what I'm worried about against Minnesota because they bring pressure at a ridiculous rate and they get to the quarterback at a ridiculous rate. So they need to keep upright. The next guy is Justin Herbert, and it's just they're just not producing fantasy points. Like Herbert threw at a time, still did not get. He got like 14 fantasy points last week. He's going against the Saints defense at quarterback 26. Daniel Jones, the rushing upside is there, but it's a Pittsburgh defense that has been a nightmare and will be a problem for him. So he's quarterback 27. And the last guy in this tier, Marcus Mariota, going up against a very good Chicago defense. He's playing in for the injured Jaden Daniels. We don't know how long that's going to be, but that's kind of your tier 6. Who would you like to highlight for a second? This one?
I guess Jameis. I mean, Jameis should be able to throw all over Baltimore. They're certainly not going to be able to run on Baltimore, even though Nick Chubb is back and kind of doing enough of his thing to, what was he, like 11 for 22? He fell into the end zone, but, you know, you hope it's better for Nick Chubb. I don't think it's going to be better in this matchup. That said, Jameis doesn't, I mean, you talked about it. He should be able to throw, but when Mike Evans went out last week, that offense absolutely took a hit. They were doing a lot of checkdowns to the backs throughout that game. They could not run their offense. Jameis Winston no longer has Amari Cooper. He never had Amari Cooper, but you figure Jameis has to be better, but this offense overall could, in fact, be worse than what they were dealing with Deshaun Watson out there. So, yeah, I mean, you know, Jamari Thrash, like, you know, who are we? Who is our savior? Cedric Tillman. It's not Jerry Jeudy. It's David Njoku, but, you know, Baltimore will do the right thing and they'll probably put Kyle Hamilton all over David Njoku. And then, you know, they'll limit him. He's going to get enough, but they'll limit him. So, yeah, I don't expect Jameis to be able to do much of anything. There will be better days. But, yeah, I expect a lot of interceptions from Jameis in this one.
Yeah, they don't. That's the thing. You really need Jerry Jeudy just to take a step forward or Cedric Tillman, one of those guys, because they're top 7 in points allowed to tight ends, Baltimore. So like it's a juicy matchup for Njoku. We'll talk about that in tight end rankings. But yeah, like they could just really dictate the coverage completely around him because there's nothing really scary about the passing options there. I mean, why am I blanking? Kevin O'Connell, not Kevin. What the heck is the coach's name? Why am I blanking on it for Cleveland?
For where?
Cleveland's coach. Why am I blanking on his name?
Stefanski.
Thank you. He can run a scheme. They're going at like one of the highest pass rates. I'm expecting that to continue with Jameis. And it was so bad with Deshaun Watson. It can only get better because this was like the worst quarterback we've seen since like the year 2000. Like it was really bad. So Jameis just has to be able to get the ball to like the weapons because they're getting open. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, it's really tough to trust him in this matchup. Our final tier is kind of just like we don't really talk about these guys, but they're still in the rankings. I will go over them quickly, but the ghost of Jaden Daniels is at quarterback 29 in case he plays. We expect him to be out, so he's not going to be there. Mason Rudolph going against the Lions defense at quarterback 30. The Lions defense can get gouged against the pass. I'm not trusting Mason Rudolph with Tennessee. No, thank you. Andy Dalton, a.k.a. Bryce Young, is at quarterback 31. Sure. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Gardner Minshew, quarterback 32. And then it's just the backups. It's whoever is starting in New Orleans. It's Rattler. It's Carr. Going up, it's the really good Chargers defense. And the ghost of Will Levis going up against Detroit. We don't need to focus on those guys. If you're starting those guys, just play flex player. Like if you're in your super flex leagues, just play a skill player. It's so much better. So yeah, that's our top 35 quarterback rankings for week 8. So that it is. You got any takeaways you want to do for these guys, or just wrap it up?
No, I mean obviously Jaden Daniels would be much higher if he plays. He's probably not going to play. Andy Dalton, I already had down at quarterback at 31 of 32 quarterbacks. I guess we don't have a bye this week. I think that's, something the NFL is doing. What the hell? I don't know. But, and then there's going to be 8 teams off in week 13 or something stupid. So there's idiots. But look, Andy Dalton was already my QB 31. Now Bryce Young steps in and will get the start because of Andy's sprained thumb in his car accident that he earned yesterday. So, and they're at Denver. I mean, it's just going to be awful. Bryce Young is going to get eviscerated. The hobbled version of Deontay Johnson wasn't going to be any good in this game. And now he's going to be eliminated. I don't know. Is JT Sanders viable? Does Chuba see a crap ton of checkdowns? Do they teach Bryce to check down? I don't know what the hell's going to happen here, but it's going to be ugly. So just stay away.
Well, we'll see. We'll talk about Jameis Sanders and the tight end ranking shows. We'll switch to that in a second. So thanks for joining us on this edition of the Quarterback Ranking Show. And wait a minute. We're going to shift over to tight end. So we'll be back in 1 second. And SeatGeek Brought to you by Fantasy Football Universe. Please use the FF Universe promo code for $20 off your first order.
We did it right now.
we what? No, we didn't do that. We hired somebody to do the voice for us. Yes, we're paying top of the line money out here for the promo code. So by the way, if you have it, it's a good code. Take advantage of it. If you guys are looking to go to a game, you might see a bad version of Patrick Mahomes, but hey, at least you can say to your kids, your grandkids, you saw Patrick Mahomes live this week. Take advantage of it, right? All right. So we are going to shift to our tight ends and talk about the lovely tight ends. So first, we're going to talk about tier 1 of our tight end rankings. This involves George Kittle going up against Dallas, Trey McBride going up against Miami, tight end 2, tight end 3, Travis Kelce going up against the Vegas Raiders, which are just an absolute disaster. And speaking of the Raiders, they have one good player. It is Brock Bowers. He is our tight end 4 going up against Kansas City. Who would you like to highlight in this tier?
It's got to be Jorge. George Kittle, just an absolute beast. Brandon Ayuk officially on IR as of a few minutes ago here during recording. So, I mean, he's done. We know that Debo is very unlikely to play this week, recovering from pneumonia. That means we have Greg Jennings, we have Ricky Pearsall, we have Jacob Cowing. None of those guys matter nearly as much as George Kittle. This offense is going to flow through George Kittle. He is your tight end 1 on the week, especially because they're playing Dallas. Even more, especially because Eric Kendricks, who is, by the way, 32 years old, has been out for the last, was out before the bye in week 6. He had a bye, and we still don't know if he's going to play here in week 8. So I don't know what's going on. If Eric Kendricks doesn't play, he's not going to be able to cover George Kittle anyway. He could just make his life more difficult. George Kittle is by far the tight end 1 here. I like the other guys here. Trey McBride, great matchup. Travis Kelce, great matchup. Brock Bowers, it's really hard to put him this low at tight end 4, but they're playing the best defense in football at the moment. Kansas City, probably the best and healthiest defense at the moment, and most functional team unit, I'd say, just generally speaking. So yeah, Kansas City is just, that defense is cooking. So we lower Brock Bowers to tight end 4 on the week, but Brock Bowers is inevitable. He's going to get his as well. You fire up all these guys this week.
Yeah, 100%. And even though like Kelce had a down game, like he was not the necessary focal point of the offense. It was Xavier Worthy last week. So I'm curious to see if that holds, especially with them bringing DeAndre Hopkins. I don't think that is necessarily going to stay, but we'll see with that offense and if it changes, because I don't know if he's going to play this week or not. They have not said with that trade since they just traded for him. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't, and that's just the offense completely. But you know what Kelce is. He's awesome. These guys are all must-start players. The more interesting tier, we'll get into your second tier. This is your tier 2 of your tight ends. This is tight ends 5 through 10. And I think a lot of these guys are high-priority guys you need to play, with a couple of them with a little bit sketchier where the target rating profile's not there and stuff. But we'll go over them. We have my favorite tight end of all time, David Njoku, Cleveland. He's going against the Baltimore Ravens. It's a good matchup. We'll see how he lives up to it. Tight end 6, Evan Ingram, going up against the Green Bay Packers defense, which has been pretty good recently. Tight end 7, and this is where it kind of gets a little interesting, Tucker Kraft, because he's attached to the Green Bay offense, going up against the Jacksonville defense, which is just
crazy,
historically bad right now. They are just ridiculously bad. So Tucker Kraft should have a good game. Tight end 8, the boost for Cade Otton, because they have no pass catching gap and other options in that offense. He's going against the Atlanta Falcons defense, and he could have a good game. Tight end 9, Mark Andrews, Mr. AKA touchdown, because that's all he's doing right now. It's like Chris Carter back in the day, just touchdown after touchdown after touchdown.
Yeah.
He's going up. He's tight end 9 going up against Cleveland, and the 10th guy in this tier 2 is Kyle Pitts going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Who is the guy you would like to highlight in this group?
Yeah, Kyle Pitts. Last 3 weeks, he's been super fantasy viable for you. I have him at tight end 10 this week. I don't love it. I want to move him higher. Against Tampa Bay, I don't think they're necessarily going to need him. Tampa Bay should struggle both against this defense and because of the fact that they're going to be living life without their top 2 options in the receiving game. And they're going to be, putting it on the ground as much as possible. So Kyle Pitts at tight end 10, I think it's a little low, but yeah, I couldn't put him above Mark Andrews, who is starting to Mark Andrews, which is fantastic for me since I own so much Mark Andrews. Cade Otton is Mr. Necessary over there just for the reasons we just talked about. And then there's guys in the next tier, Ferguson, Kmet, Henry. All these guys are good tight end options. They're just in more difficult matchups than usual this week. So yeah, give me Pitts at 10, yeah, pretty easily. And then guys like Tucker Kraft against Jacksonville, Evan Ingram. I mean, these guys should all eat, and I'm going to fire up every single one of them.
Yeah, they're all good. I think some of them are more like a kind of touchdown dependent, and that's kind of the Mark Andrews.
Sure.
Kyle Pitts is interesting. He's kind of the opposite. He just doesn't get touchdowns by the way he's used, but he hears targets. I think Otten, it's very interesting to see Otten and Njoku this week with the changes to the offense and how that dictates for them, because I think you could personally make the case to put David Njoku in tier 1. We'll see if he lives up to it. But I think these guys are going to kind of cycle through, and we'll see who steps forward out of this tier, who kind of falls back, because a few of them will, a few of them won't. It's a really good group of tight ends to have. If you have them, you're playing them. Like, let's be real. It just is what it is at tight end. All right, now it gets really interesting tight end, because we get from guys you're starting to, it's like potentially a few of these guys in this city are the last guys you're starting. If you have them, the highest of this group at tight end 11, this is Jake Ferguson starting out tier 3. He's going up against San Francisco. That offense has really struggled. We'll see if they can continue to start Ferguson the way they are. Hopefully they can against San Francisco, because let's be real, they don't have a lot. Like, it's CeeDee Lamb, he's struggled. Ferguson's been kind of the more consistent option on that offense. We'll see if that sticks forward. The next guy, Taysom Hill, is back from the dead. He's in our lives again. He's tight end 12, going up against the Chargers. I get it, the Chargers defense and everything, but you know the upside shot with Taysom Hill. If you have him, just play Taysom Hill. It's that simple, because it's 0 or 45 points is the way I describe it.
Exactly.
It's a roller coaster, right? You don't know, but you just ride it and you just enjoy it, because tight end is so bad. Next guy, Cole Kmet, who I am surprised you actually have him this low against the Washington defense. He's number 13, going up against matchup against Washington. And then the last guy in this group, Hunter Henry, who we talk about the ascension of Drake May and how this is helping out Hunter Henry a lot. Hunter Henry becomes a guy that you can make the case to start each and every week now. He's going up against a good Jets defense, and he rounds out tier 3 at number 14. Which of these guys would you like to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about all of them real quick. Hunter Henry is really interesting, but CJ Mosley is the question. Will he play? He's been slowly ramping up according to the team. But Jamian Sherwood, I don't know, Sherwood is not going to keep up with Hunter Henry, so he should be able to get his. We'll see how much against a good Jets D. Ferguson, it's just tough matchups. And then Cole Kmet. I just don't believe the Cole Kmet, I guess, breakout is for real. He's a good player. He's just mired in an offense with a bunch of other good players. And it's going to be, look, this week, I think they'll be fine against Washington. Next week against Arizona, fine. Even New England in week 10. But it's going to be a rough ride for Caleb Williams and company in the back half of this season. It could start this week with an improved Washington defense over the last couple of games. Is Dan Quinn getting in their heads and getting them motivated and, figuring it out? Probably not. But, these offenses always have to keep up with Jaden Daniels and that offense. So that becomes difficult. Washington can kind of pin their ears back as much as they can. And who is it? Fowler. Dante Fowler is a menace on that Washington defensive line. So he continues to get to the quarterback. So, we'll see if Cole Kmet can be involved. I don't know. I don't trust it. He's been there time and again, but like you said, instead of Ferguson, Kmet, and Henry, I'm probably more comfortable firing up Taysom Hill and just praying for 20 points this week.
Yeah, for those that don't remember, Dante Fowler was the 3rd overall pick back in 2015. The guy has the pedigree. He just hasn't lived up to it. Maybe Dan Quinn's getting in to figure it out in Washington and basically plays his 10th season or whatever. It was just an awful situation down in Jacksonville for a long time for him. And then it finally seems like it's going well. So, maybe he's matured, maybe he's figured out. I think the interesting thing is because Jaden Daniels is out, it's Marcus Mariota. And that's the more interesting thing in that offense, because we expect Mariota to be the crowd the quarterback for the next few weeks.
Yeah.
How that works for him, and if he's going to be going outside the sticks or if he's going to keep it short and just dump off to Cole Kmet in the middle of the field. So I don't know how that's going to go. I think it can go a lot of ways with him. But yeah, this is probably the most interesting tier you have with guys, just because they could go, you could see them being top 5, or you could see them falling back depending on what happens. There's a lot of things that will dictate for them. Let's jump to tier 4, which there's still a lot of good names in this tier. So this is where we start to get to I like these guys, but there are some warts on their profile. Starting out, tight end 15, Dalton Kincaid. He just has not lived up to the hype. It has not happened. Now they have Amari Cooper.
Crazy.
Ideally, this should make it easier for him, right? We'll see. He just has not earned it. He's earning targets, but he's just doing nothing with them. It's 3 for 50. You're not getting much with it. So we'll see if he does good this week against Seattle, because Seattle can be had. I'm curious to see how they work those out. Next guy, Sam Laporta, going up against Tennessee Titans defense, who is starting to show a lot of warts. I think because Jameis Williams is out, like Laporta, you can make the case to push him up a little bit
Could
higher.
push him up. Yep.
We'll see though. Like he's just not earning targets at all. Like I think this is what we talked about earlier. It just comes back to him staying in and protecting. So if they let him roam free and get out there, like I like his chances this week. Next up, Pat Fryermuth, the guy that's just like just kind of a middling tight end. There's a lot to like about him, but he just hasn't done enough for you. So he's kind of just there, tight end 17, going up against the Giants defense. The next guy, Dalton Schultz, we had hopes that they were going to feature him a little bit more and everything was going to work out. That offense just hit the brakes last week. It was a disaster. He's going up against Indianapolis defense, which not a good defense. They get a few pieces back on the D-line. We'll see if that makes out for him. And the last guy, Zach Ertz, tight end 19, going up against the Chicago defense. We'll see how this happens. If, like we talk about with Marcus Mariota and those things, if Zach Ertz is basically just the check down king in this, I don't know if it's going to happen. We'll see. He rounds out this tier for you. So who are these guys that you're kind of like higher on and lower on in this tier, I guess?
I hate to talk about it, but we have to talk about Dalton Kincaid. It doesn't make any sense to me what is happening with Dalton Kincaid since week 4. He's had 7 targets, 6 targets, 7 targets, and 6 targets. He has converted that into tight end 15, tight end 26, tight end 14, and tight end 19. He is just not putting up points. He is not catching, in some of his games, he's not catching half of the targets that are thrown to him. I don't know if this is a Josh Allen issue in terms of targeting him or what the connection problem is. But the real issue for me, if I add it up, is Josh Allen just really isn't looking for him in the red zone. And I think that's where we expected Dalton Kincaid to thrive. Instead, he's getting those, check downs to James Cook. I think Ray Davis took one in through the air last week. I'm trying to think who else is scoring touchdowns. I know Shakir has gotten in maybe once or twice, but it's crazy. Josh Allen is doing it on the ground as we know he always does, and he's throwing multiple touchdowns in more than half of his games. But the thing is, they're just not going to Dalton Kincaid. This is a problem. Sam Laporta is the same issue. He's just not even getting those targets. Sam Laporta, I think, has 3 targets in the last 2 weeks, which is stupid. He's still got 75 yards total, but it's just dumb what's happening there with JMO. Yeah, I can push Laporta up, but these two have been the most disappointing by far of all the tight ends. And, it's just a shame, but we got to keep him down until further notice.
Yeah, I think with Dalton Kincaid, like a lot of the peripherals are good. Like he's 7th in target share. He's at 20%. He has 37 targets. He's 6th in the position. His route participation is fine. He's about 80%. He's doing a lot of good things. It's just the lack of efficiency is really hindering him. Like you're saying, he's outside the top 12 in red zone targets. It's not good. A lot of stuff is good, but they're just not connecting. So maybe Amari Cooper is the missing piece, the skeleton key that unlocks him, and that offense moves forward. It's entirely possible, but we just have not seen it. So it's really hard to put him high in rankings because I would say he's been the biggest disappointment. And like, if you like talk about him and Kate Otten, like what's the difference in their dynasty profile? I literally don't know because they're like the same age. Kate Otten actually has the chance and he's earning Pro Bowl. So like, we'll see moving forward how Dalton Kincaid continues to slide or if he takes a step forward because he's going to have to do it sooner or he's just keep sliding. Yeah. The next tier is kind of the last guys we're probably going to start. It's tier 5, tight ends 20 through 25. We have Noah Fant without DK Metcalf. Noah Fant did show out against Atlanta. He had like 60 yards. We'll see if this happens in this week against Buffalo. I'm not sure, but the idea is there. Yeah. Jonnu Smith coming off again, a monster game. We have him, I think he was tight end 1 or tight end 2 last week. He's tight end 21 going up against Arizona Cardinals defense.
Yes.
With Jonnu Smith, we know it is kind of like boom or bust. It's likely not to repeat itself, but you could chase it with him again. Isaiah Likely, tight end 22 going up against Cleveland. You have Colby Parkinson going up against the Minnesota Vikings defense and at tight end 23. Juwan Johnson, the second state tight end, at tight end 24, going up against Chargers defense. And the last guy in this group, who might be the most interesting, people probably surprises there, Jatavion Sanders, who has been showing out the last few weeks. He's been earning targets. We mentioned him on the waiver wire show. He's the last guy running out tier 5 for you at tight end 25. So the floor is yours to talk about whoever you would like in this group.
Yeah, let's talk about JT because I don't really care about any of these other guys that we mentioned. They're fine, but they're boom bust. We do not know when they're going to get in the end zone. We do not know when they're going to be hyper targeted. At least with Sanders over the last 2 games, he's had 7 and 6 targets. He's catching nearly everything. But again, these are Andy Dalton targets. These are not Bryce Young targets. He is going to receive Bryce Young targets this game or target or, nothing. Who knows what's going to happen here. And he was ranked here because of the matchup against Denver with the assumption that Andy Dalton was the quarterback. Now with Bryce Young, I don't know. I probably need to push him below Will Disley and Tyler Conklin and Chig Okonkwo. It's getting abysmal here. I just think, it's kind of the same thing. Somebody was mentioning in a chat, I forget which chat it was, but they were saying, I have these two tight ends. They were both good tight ends. It was something like Mark Andrews and Pat Freiermuth or something. I can't remember who it was, but they were like, they're both on bye this 1 week. And I was like, okay, shallow benches, you might just ride it out with them on the bye and not pick up another tight end. Because what are you going to do? You're going to drop like a relevant position player to maybe get 6 points from, Noah Gray. Like, why? So yeah, with guys this low, I get you probably have to start them. You want to know who is going to have the best matchup. But in this case, you're just kind of plugging and praying. At least I'll take the stab on Sanders and see if he has anything, but it's going to be tougher this week with Bryce Young.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing, right? And Tommy Tremble's been out the last few weeks. I was hearing this on the show, which makes a lot of sense why he's kind of taking a tip forward. We'll see with Tommy Tremble coming back, how that impacts his targeting profile, because if he's taking some of those routes away, that's potential targets. And this offense with Bryce Young is going to regress. Like we've seen it be boom bust with Dalton. We're looking for just like a really, really bad game. So you're hoping you can earn it, but like it's kind of like you're kind of more wish casting more than anything else. So I think it's an interesting bet to make, but yeah, that's kind of why he's at the bottom of that tier. Yeah. All right, let's jump to, I guess you can make the case for these guys. There's one guy who's a top guy. This is tier 6. This is tight ends 26 through 30. This starts with Will Disley coming off of a monster Monday Night Football game, the game of his career, where we're like, you know what? This is going to be a Lamb McConkey game. No. Justin Herbert's like, hey, Will Disley, can you catch the ball? I'm going to throw it to you every time. He came off of a monster game. So he's your tight end 26 going against New Orleans. We have Tyler Conklin, who drops down significantly because you bring in Devontae Adams. It changes that offense a little bit. We saw it in the first week. Didn't really work out. We'll see how it goes against New England this week. Tight end 28, Chig Okonkwo. I mean, you're just throwing praise on Chig Okonkwo because he's just not doing much of anything. He's there going up against Detroit defense, which has shown some cracks, so maybe you can get there. The next guy we don't think is going to play, but if he does, we'll raise him up. It's TJ Hawkinson, tight end 29, going up against the Rams. And the last guy rounding out this tier, who you just talked about, Noah Gray, the second Kansas City tight end, going up against the Las Vegas Raiders at tight end 30. Is there anyone you'd like to highlight in this tier?
No, but just to say the fact that like all of these guys had really good weeks last week, like, like Will Disley the most, but all these guys were serviceable if you happen to spot start them, like Noah Gray. I did in a couple leagues, and Tyler Conklin in one spot because you had to. So like you can fire them up again if you have to, but like don't do that. If you really can avoid it. TJ Hawkinson is the interesting guy. I don't think he's back this week. He's been limited. So it's unlikely. They probably don't need him to beat the Los Angeles Rams. I wouldn't be surprised if he was active for the game and they just see if they need him like in spot duty in the red zone just to try and put something together. I doubt that's the case. But yeah, that's why he's so low. Obviously, if he's fired up, if he's ready to go, he's damn near a top 12 option right out the gate. So yeah, he's just this low because of that. And then you can see tier 7. We don't really need to talk about anybody here. Maybe the Cincinnati guys have a good game. Maybe Theo Johnson against Pittsburgh, but like, no, just, this is scraping the bottom of the tight end barrel, which you never want to do. But hey, some of us have to. And if we do, that's why the rankings go this deep.
Yeah, the one guy in that tier that you have is Dallas Goedert, and if he plays, he will move up rankings just because he's Dallas Goedert,
sure.
Right?
For
so,
sure.
But yeah, that's why he's down to the list. It's just kind of the interesting thing about the tight ends is this last week we had the most tight ends score double-digit points. It was tied with week 5. We had 16 tight ends do it. We had the tight end do that as well. So that's why tight end scoring seemed like it was better, is because we just had more quantity and depth. A couple weeks, it's been real dire there. But yep, that's going to round out our tight end show, our top 35 tight ends of week 8. We flow through them because you know what it is at tight end. It's the haves and the have-nots real fast.
Yes,
so for myself, for Jeremy, we want to thank y'all for joining us. If you have not, please like and subscribe and comment below. We appreciate all the support you guys give to us because that's what this is all based on. The support you guys give to us, we'll give back to you. So we're going to be continuing our shows tomorrow, talking about running backs, wide receivers for the rest of the week. And we'll also be getting into our fun roundtable show. And then Sunday we have the start. So buckle up, folks. We got a lot of shows coming up this week, and we hope you enjoy. So take care. We'll see you tomorrow. Listen up, closely, let the